Hi there, Working Homeschool Mom. This is Charlotte Jones from My Little Homeschool and Charlotte Jones 24/7. And I am so thrilled to have you here on the 50th episode of the Strike a Balance podcast for Working Homeschool Moms. I can't believe I've made it so far. I'm so thrilled that I've made it to 50 episodes. And this episode is going to be a little bit different to a normal one because I'm taking 50 of my favorite clips from the guests that I've had over the last year, and I've compiled it, and there are some real gems in there, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed going through all my old episodes and seeing how far I've come and how much I've learned. It would be wonderful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It helps to put the podcast in front of other working homeschool moms so that together we can take this working homeschool mom journey. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. This is Charlotte Jones. I'm a homeschool coach and homeschooling mom of twin boys. I know it can feel really overwhelming to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So each week I chat about tips and strategies for being a happy and thriving working homeschool mom that you can implement in your life too. I also speak to awesome and inspiring women who manage to juggle homeschooling and work successfully and find out what their secrets are. Be sure to check out my time audit and mindset challenge in the show notes and sign up to my newsletter for lots of cool freebies. And if you ever need to chat, please book in a session with me. I'm so excited for you to be here and I hope you'll get so much value out of this episode. So let's get started. Are you looking for a new math curriculum? Well, I'm thrilled to introduce our favorite math curriculum to you. CTCMath specializes in providing online video tutorials that take a multi-sensory approach to learning. Favorably reviewed in Cathy Duffy's 102 Top Picks and the old Schoolhouse crew review, the lessons are short and concise to help your children break down concepts and appreciate math in a whole new way. The lessons are taught the traditional way and not to a test. Each one of the video tutorials is taught by an internationally acclaimed teacher, Pat Murray, who is renowned for teaching math concepts in a simple, easy to understand way and in only a few minutes at a time. Using a multi-sensory approach means having the combination of effective graphics and animation synchronized with the voice of a friendly teacher together with a practical assessment. This three-pronged attack makes learning so much easier and more effective. Even students who struggled with math are getting fantastic results, and ones who were doing okay before are now doing brilliantly. Visit ctcmath.com today to start your free trial. CTC Maths is generously offering my listeners an amazing special. Go to www.ctcmath.com/MLH to get a half price discount plus a bonus 6 months for free. That's ctcmath.com/MLH. The first 10 clips are all about homeschooling, homeschooling strategies and tips, ideas for resources, and the mindset that you need to have a successful homeschool. I'm sure you're going to find some great advice in the next 10 clips, so enjoy.
Exactly. So much of homeschooling, like the real gift is in the relationships and in just the real life learning. Like this is just what it means to be human, right? More than just the academics or the worksheets.
So my absolutely favorite thing to do as a homeschool parent is to outsource things that I'm not an expert in. So this does require, if you've got a little bit of extra room in your budget, which isn't always the case for us, but I try to budget for these things. I like to outsource to experts.
By the way, I learned this the hard way. I did not learn this because I was just brilliantly thinking of this, and it's always been wonderful. But you have to give them independence, and as they've moved middle school to high school, I've had to let go of so much and tell them, this is their education, not mine. If they want to do something for a career in life, then they need to be thinking about that because I can't tell them what to do. And so we've become more of a partnership over the years instead of me just telling them, this and teaching them this. I call myself more of a facilitator now.
I do speak profoundly about the joys of homeschooling. And I do encourage anyone who has it on their heart to follow it, like go with it. because I feel like we are all qualified. And I feel like that's why they came through us, was because we were the ones that were supposed to guide them on this journey, not pass the baton off.
We love our library because I think books are probably the best educational resource out there. So we borrow lots and lots of books. We use books to let us try on lots of different ideas, to let us see into other people's lives, and just to dabble and have a bit of a look at things that we're interested in.
When I tell people when they're starting to homeschool, especially with little kids, let them play and read to them. That's the best thing that we can do. Just read to them, read to them, read to them.
When children know what's expected, they tend to cooperate. For example, every reading lesson for us would start and end in tears. It was horrible watching him like that. So he actually told me he would never read alone and that he hates reading. And I realized that I wasn't clear in my expectations of him, and that he might just feel overwhelmed because I was opening that huge book in front of him and making him read. And I realized he looked at it as something overwhelming, like he has to read all those pages and it's too much. Or on one side, he was a perfectionist also. He knew he couldn't read it fast enough and he was feeling overwhelmed. And then I started telling him my expectations before each reading lesson. And they sounded something like that. I just want you to read this one page for reading. I will read everything else to you. You won't need to read anything else the whole day. And this was a compromise that we both found satisfying.
Over the first couple of years, I just really understood how to rely on myself and my kids and trust myself and use the imagination and intuition that I have as their parent, right? I can rely on that because no one knows them as well as I do, as their teacher, as their parent. And if I can rely on that, then we can do whatever we need to do. If we need to pivot and study this, because I see a lack of something, then we'll do that.
A lot of things going on. I'm like, oh, what are we gonna do? And so I pretty much stop making more resources, and I stop planning out every single thing anymore. I'm like, oh, that's no use. She didn't, and the other kid kind of following her, and I have no idea. So I stop for a couple months and see what they want, and just let them to lead me, more than I kind of take control anymore. And I realized at that time, after a while, I realized that's how I start unschooling. Even though I didn't do any planning and make a lot of crazy activity and all this stuff, my kids still learning, and they still asking questions. They still making a lot of amazing craft, and they just doing it on their own, kind of, but without me planning every single thing.
When you're first getting started, I really do suggest looking for a curriculum that will help you to see what are things that you like, and then you can see what you want to customize, or if you even want to do that at all. I do believe that curriculum is a very helpful element, and it's something that shouldn't be overlooked or looked down on as a part, no matter where you are in your homeschool journey. It's definitely helping us, so I'm a proponent for it.
For the next 10 clips, we're going to look at all things organization. All the working homeschool moms I interviewed had different ways to organize, but I think at the end of the day, it's important to find organization that suits your family. Hopefully you'll find some inspiration in the organization tips that my guests share. Enjoy.
I have a prioritizing method that I use that helps me, so that because I tend to sometimes try to pack my day with lots of things, but this helps me to only focus on what's most important. And I call it my top 7. So each day I use this method to figure out what are the top 7 things that need to happen today. And that's what I focus on for that day. I don't beat myself up if I don't get all 7 things done, but these are the only 7 things I'm focusing on. These are the primary things that need to happen today. And they can be anything. If I'm prepping food for the week, that's one of the main things. If it can be anything, so it doesn't have to be a huge project. It could be even something that someone else might think is minor, but it's important to get done that day. And that's how I try to keep myself focused, because like I said, I tend to pack my days in, and then I want to avoid, exhaustion.
I think one of the things that is really helpful is that I have a pretty extensive to-do list, and I try to make sure that I write down everything that I'm thinking about, because I have a pretty big mental load between just things that need to be done for the household, or like tasks for work, or things that we need to do for our homeschool. And so I try to make sure that I have one central spot where everything gets written down. And then from there, I spend time in the evening each night thinking about what needs to get done the next day, and trying to set some priorities for myself in each area in terms of what we'll be doing in our homeschool the next day, and what are the most essential things that need to get done for our household and for my business and for my family. And then those priorities go into the schedule in specific times. And then I'm able to work the rest of the things that come that day around those priorities that I've identified.
So organization, I probably about how many years ago now, like 6 years ago, I was kind of a mess in that area. I wasn't really I didn't really, I had like these massive to-do lists and stuff floating around the house, and that was really my system. And that ended stressing me out so much. So a good friend of mine said, "Hey, Kelly, I think you would really like bullet journaling." And I was kind of resistant to it at the time, because I was like, "No, I'm good, right?" Just a little bit prideful there. But then, when I had that burnout of, I've got no systems and I'm stressed out here with no routines and whatnot, I looked at it, and then I kind of just started reading about planning and just strategies and like simple planning, and just learned more about it and started to apply it day to day. And then kind of through the years, I developed my own system through bullet journaling, but like now I have my own thing that I've used, because I've learned just simple planning strategies, nothing complicated or anything like that.
I'm also a naturally pretty organized person. I love a schedule. I like things to be really regimented for myself, but I've had to learn that that doesn't always work for young children. And instead of prioritizing the schedule or the checklist or what I feel like we need to do that day, I've gotten better at tapping into our rhythm.
Each kid has their own schedule and they know exactly what they have to do. So that responsibility is on them. For me, staying organized, I do use a paper planner. I know. It's not digital. My husband harasses me for it not being digital. And I'm like, but I need to plan things, and I don't always want to be in front of the computer while I plan things. So my planner becomes my brain. And then, I just go from there.
Well, I work from home. So for me, really, like, having my schedule helps to with the other things, because like, as you can tell, we're not very scheduled when it comes to school. It's very like it ebbs and flows. But for me, having a work schedule and sticking to that, so I teach on Outschool, and I work for a nonprofit organization from home. And so I'm setting like, okay, these are my hours that I'm going to work, and that helps to keep us on track, to make sure like that I'm getting my work done, because I don't necessarily have a job that I have to clock in certain hours. And so, but for me, setting my own schedule helps to make sure that I have that time to focus and do my work. And a lot of times during that time, then my son will be doing things on his own. And so that really helps me to keep organized in that way.
Sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm very organized. We'll just put that out there right now. Some days feel like everything is everywhere. But prioritizing is something that I teach in my work with meditation. Obviously, if you want to create a habit, you need to put something first on the list. And so this is something that I teach to others, and that has come in handy for myself.
I don't feel like I keep myself completely organized, but I have a great group, a mastermind group that keeps me kind of accountable. And I feel like really the only way you can keep yourself together is to have a community. And when you have that community that helps you and says, don't freak out, it's okay. You didn't make that deadline, it's okay, whatever. Or the kids are having a meltdown. And so the entire day is shot as far as work goes, that they can tell you it'll be all right, you'll move on. Because it's just going to happen. When you're homeschooling, it's just going to happen.
So I have two major things that help me stay organized. I use a planner and I write down all the important things, all even non-important things, and just try to keep track, especially for our homeschool. I have a specific homeschool planner where I put everything in, but I really make sure that I'm keeping track of what my kids are doing, because here in New York, we have a lot of paperwork. And so making sure I have really detailed descriptions of what they have done, like what they've accomplished for the day, helps me later on when I'm doing like the quarterly reports here and stuff. So I also have a big whiteboard, like a big whiteboard calendar that you can erase and stuff. And I put all like the important things that I'm doing, like this podcast is on there. So everybody knows. And hopefully everybody, like it all syncs and works and everybody pays attention to it. And those really help me to stay organized.
I find having that flow, the big picture goals that we can just replicate week by week, to be a much better way of planning out the homeschool schedule than trying to assign specific page numbers. Because as soon as somebody gets sick or someone struggles with a concept, you're already behind, and there's just nothing more discouraging than that behind feeling. So that is one way in which we're able to stay organized with our homeschool.
The next section is all about schedules. Once again, most working homeschool moms have their own schedules, but something that is definitely common for almost all of them is the idea that flexibility is really, really important in order to have a sustainable schedule. Once again, there are some fantastic tips in there that I'm sure are going to inspire you to create a schedule that's just right for you and your family.
I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes people make early on, is that they pick their homeschooling style and they pick their curriculum and they set a schedule and then they feel locked into that. And even when something is working great, it's not going to work great forever. Your kids are going to change, you're going to change, your life is going to change. And eventually that thing that worked so great for you isn't going to work anymore.
Homeschooling, our schedule, I feel like, changes all the time. And so when we're going places, like the whole schedule sort of gets like thrown out the window. But I would say for a typical day when we're home, we sort of have a slow start to our day. Everybody, wakes up and gets breakfast, and my kids like to read or play with Legos or whatever they want to do. And in that time, if I need to, I can be working on work stuff, but I can also be just like taking a minute to wake up, because sometimes it does take a minute for me to wake up. But everybody seemed to be just much more happy and harmonious with a slower start to our day.
Yeah, it's worked out really well for my daughter because she is a night owl. She loves to stay up pretty late drawing. If she had to get up at, like, my son who goes to school, he's out the door right after 7, it would really change. It would change her life a lot. And so this is nice because she can stay up late drawing, and then, 9 o'clock or so, she can wake up. And of course, we're sitting down and homeschooling from 10 to 1, but she's doing lots of other things throughout the day. She's learning, taking classes, doing her own independent work.
So first up, I am absolutely terrible at schedules. I would love to be good at them, and we have tried before, but they always seem to fall apart even on the first day. So we have minimal work requirements, and each of the kids has a weekly list, and they just tick off their work as they do it. So basically, whenever it fits in with whatever else we're doing, we don't have a set time, 9 o'clock we all have to sit down and start. It all depends on what we're doing that day. We do tend to do 4 weeks on and 1 week off with their core work. And most of the time is spent on interests and hobbies and things like that.
So I will homeschool from the beginning of August to the beginning of May because they like that longer break. We'll do the typical holidays, so like a week off Thanksgiving, 2 weeks off at Christmas. I always take my birthday off because that should be, a national holiday as well. And so, and then we'll do spring break too. As far as like traditional breaks, I'll keep those in there. And then, I'll just throw in Fridays off every now and again.
Our typical day, and it starts with a little stretching. We do some yoga to start with. It usually doesn't start until around 10 or 11. As far as our sit down time, like us getting, we have an area, a learning area in our home, and we call it the forest because we have a green rug in it. So I'll tell them to meet me in the forest, and we'll start with some stretching, and it's mainly us reading. We do a lot of reading. They'll read a book. I'll read a book. We'll do a little circle because we love the library. So we always have some new books to partake in. The girls like playing games. I like them doing puzzles. They like Legos. It's just a lot of hands-on activities. We do crafts. Everyone who's immersed in the homeschool or home learning journey understand that it's all day.
I really liked the year-round learning because I live in Tennessee and it is really hot here in the summer. And so I don't like to do stuff in the summer. I like to do stuff in the fall and spring. So I really always enjoyed the year-round so we could take bigger breaks when the weather's more pleasant here.
365 days a year. That's kind of how we approached it. We never did like a traditional school schedule, and we broke it down by seasons because what I realized was that when it was summer, we were still learning. We were still doing things, but it was mostly outside. So I felt like we would continue to do things involving reading and we would continue working on our math skills, but we weren't necessarily inside doing science experiments. We were outside just living, doing beach and hikes. And my boys love camping, so we would plan those. And so we would really work through the seasons. And that worked really well for us.
Think about it. We weren't, quote unquote, learning for 8 hours in school either. There was a lot of breaks here and there, between classes and other types of classes. And, there's a lot that goes into school, of course, but there's a lot of excess that's in school that you can just remove from homeschool, and you can find your own rhythm and pace. So yeah, don't feel like you have to jump in and do. Most homeschoolers don't do 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Like most of us don't. So yeah, don't feel like you have to do that. That's unrealistic.
Because we travel full-time, or that's what we're working towards, full-time travel, we do quite a bit of unschooling when we reach a new destination. Our goal is to take advantage of what we're learning there. So unschooling, we would have a schedule like where we run errands together. My kids like to do all the ordering in the language. They were really good at ordering at the patisseries in France. And then we come home. We do just a little bit of book work on the porch. My children are still very young. They're 6 and 3. So maximum 2 hours throughout the day of book work. And that's like spread in 20, 25-minute increments.
Next, my guests speak about self-care. As working homeschool moms, self-care is vital. And I would say, even though, once again, they all have different ways that they practice self-care, they all agree that it is incredibly important that as working homeschool moms, we prioritize ourselves.
Well, currently, self-care for me looks like a nap. I used to think, I can't go to sleep. I can't sleep during the day. I have to sleep at night when it's bedtime. But now I really prioritize napping, and I listen to my body. And, if my body says it needs to rest, then I take a moment to rest. And, you may do a 20-minute power nap, or you may just lay down for 5 minutes to close your eyes, but your body just needs that time to stop for a second.
This is so important for homeschool parents. I know that when my kids were first born, I really struggled with taking time for myself and feeling like I could take time for self-care. And so for a while when my kids were really small, I just never did. And it led to this point where I was just really burned out and really struggling with mental health, really, because I was never taking any time for myself. And so I ended up sort of developing this system with my husband where once a week I have a scheduled time where it's going to be my time to just intentionally reflect on how my week has gone and to spend some time doing self-care.
So for me, I've found that it's really important for me to have some alone time. And I'm really fortunate in that I do have a partner who supports that and really helps me to make sure that I have that. So that alone time can look like right now, my bedroom door is closed and he's making sure that all of the different needs and things around the home and with my daughter are met. It also sometimes looks like me just going for a walk. My favorite self-care, which isn't possible all the time, but I do try to do it once or twice a year, is to go on a retreat. Sometimes they're more structured retreats, like a writing retreat, but oftentimes it's a friend and I finding, a little Airbnb somewhere and just getting away.
I also really crave social time with my friends. And I like my alone time a lot more than I feel like I even realized before we went through the pandemic and I was sort of forced into it. But I need spots throughout my month where I'm doing something social. That fills up my cup in a lot of ways.
I told you I do meditation, I do yoga, I have a whole spiritual playlist that I listen to. I like to pour into myself because I know that's the energy I'm gonna give out to my kids. Like the more I'm able to take care of me, the more I'm able to successfully take care of them.
That's something I have really struggled with. I think a lot of women do, a lot of moms do. But lately I've realized that I have to take care of myself. Um, I am taking the time now to go on walks. That really just it just makes me feel good. Like it helps my mental state, my mental health, just getting moving and all of that really helps me. So taking the time to do that. And then I think taking the time for friends.
This took me a long time, but my mornings have become a really important piece of my day. I read a book once that said, make your morning something you're excited to wake up for. And that sort of clicked for me, that I was a person who waited and waited and waited until the very last minute to get out of bed. And then I felt rushed and stressed and overwhelmed, and we had to do this and get here and, just all the things. And so to have that slower pace for myself in the morning has been probably one of the biggest changes. And of course, I started just doing 5 minutes of meditation. And then when that felt comfortable, I added, journaling and spending time reading. And then I added getting up and doing some movement. And so now it's this little package that makes my mornings really just set me up for the day.
Self-care, like I said, I try to wake up before my children. Sometimes that works, but regardless, self-care is knowing when to stop and take breaks. It's also taking a moment to make sure that my mindset is strong. So I do daily affirmations. I share some of that on my social media. I like to read things that uplift me, a lot of personal development, just making sure my basic needs are met, making sure that I'm moving my body, making sure that I'm drinking enough water, things like that.
So self-care, it actually, there are the habits that I spoke about before. Some of those are specific, just like personal ones, like drinking a certain amount of water or getting a certain number of steps in a day. I have a Fitbit, so, I do that. I just try to really pay attention to my mood. I laugh a lot. Like laughing for me, I remember as a kid, I just noticed how adults just didn't laugh a lot. And I was like, oh no, that's not going to be me. Because I love to be silly, and it gets worse as I get older. humor. And that's why I do the reels, because I just think like laughing and just being happy and silly and funny is a joy. So I do a lot of that.
Self-care, I really enjoy swimming. We're lucky enough to live near a lake when we're staying with my parents. So if I could stay in the water all day long, that would be great for me. Just really exhausting myself by swimming and then getting a really good night's sleep after that. I enjoy kayaking. I enjoy hiking when the weather is nice and cool. I do not like to be outside when it's miserably hot. And then at the end of the day, just like a lavender bath bomb in a really burning hot bathtub is how I like to end my day.
And finally, we get to my favorite part of the episode because it's all about mindset. My guests share such fantastic advice, ideas, and thoughts about mindset. And once again, they all agree that mindset is everything in order to be a happy and thriving working homeschool mom. I'm sure you're going to love this section as much as I loved putting it together.
Oh, I think it's everything. I think it's everything. One of my favorite quotes is from Henry Ford, who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. It's just, I think so much in life is all about our mindsets and how we look at it. Focusing on the things that you can control. It gets really frustrating to try to, whether it's, how a child acts out or, that the weather has ruined your plans. If you focus on just the things in your life that you can control and try to have a positive and flexible mindset, I think it just makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, I love that you asked that because I do think that mindset is really important. And I think it's important for being a successful working homeschool mom, but I really think it's important for being successful at anything that you do. Because the more that I work through this, the more that I'm learning that no matter what I'm thinking, my brain is going to try to prove that thought right. So lately I've been working through the thought of I don't have enough time because I feel like I think that thought often. I'm always thinking I don't have enough time. And so my brain is trying to find those times where it's proving itself right.
I really believe everything. I wouldn't even say believe. I know everything starts and ends between the ears. It's right in the mind for each person individually. It's about perspective. It's identity. It's how you relate to the world. It is how you take thoughts into feelings, into decisions, into actions, and then how you process results that are happening and what you do with those, right?
I think that if you're not thinking about things in a positive way, it's really hard to move forward because there kind of are a lot of setbacks in homeschool, in life, in working. Nothing goes perfectly all the time. And so if you can't have that positive view that it will all work out in the long run, it's really hard.
I think it has, a large part to do with it for sure, because I think that if we believe we can't do it, then it's not going to happen, right? But if we believe we can, our brains are going to be scrambling to think of ways to make it work, right? Like to be creative and thinking outside the box. But yeah, if we come towards something and be like, oh no, I can't do that, then we automatically close that door. But if we believe we can, we're going to try to make it work.
I just said, nope. Like the priority is homeschool. The priority is my son. So if I need to get a new job, then that's what I will do. And so for me, it's really just staying focused on why I want to homeschool, like why we're homeschooling and like what is the purpose, because it can get challenging at times to work. Working in homeschool is definitely challenging, being a working mom and homeschooling. And for me, I'm also a single mom. It's just it can be very challenging, but just staying focused on the why of like why we're doing this, or why I've chosen to homeschool.
So it is incredibly important. We can let the day-to-day stress drag us down because it will be there. or we can learn ways to manage it and work through those challenges moving forward in a positive way.
I think it's so important. I really have to focus on my why consistently. I have to think about what made us want to start this business in the first place. I get a lot of fulfillment from helping homeschoolers go through this journey, but at the same time, I want our business to grow for our family financially. So keeping my goals and clearly in mind helps me to keep on track. And also being a good example for my older kids especially, where they see that I'm working hard. They see me balancing the work I have to do at home for my business and also taking care of them and schooling them. And for me, sometimes it has been a struggle, and I hope that them seeing me make adjustments and trying to meet my goals, also making sacrifices to be able to continue to homeschool them. I hope that all helps them, and that of course helps me because I feel like that's part of my job as a parent in general.
I think that is the most important thing when you're starting out in your homeschool, but also throughout your homeschool. Developing a growth mindset, knowing that mistakes happen, learning from your mistakes, that failure, there's no such thing. It's just, finding another solution. In homeschooling is really important because a lot of times when we start homeschooling or even in the midst of homeschooling, we feel like we're not capable for some reason because we're told that our kids are supposed to be educated from elsewhere. So we're not enough. We need a degree in order to homeschool our children or to teach our children. And a lot of times that's not a really great mindset to come in with, not feeling like you're enough or that you're capable. So making sure that you take that time to really develop that growth mindset, that positive mindset for yourself, and also as a model for your kids really does wonders when it comes to homeschooling.
It absolutely is everything. And that's some of my book discusses the mind. We talk about the heart and the mind and the home in my book, but mindset is so key. And people say deschooling is the key to allowing your mindset to change. But a lot of people speak of it as if it's a one-time deal. Like, for every month, or year the kids were in school, that's a month, or, they act like it's a finite experience. But deschooling is a lifetime experience as far as I'm concerned, especially with homeschooling, because it highlights so much.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Drop me a DM on Instagram or post on the Working Homeschool Moms support group over on Facebook, and let me know what resonated the most with you. It would also be great if you could rate, review, and subscribe, or share the podcast with a working homeschool mom who might need it. It's my mission to support as many working homeschool moms as possible. Until next time, take care. Hi there, working homeschool mom. This is Charlotte Jones from My Little Homeschool and Charlotte Jones 24/7. And I am so thrilled to have you here on the 50th episode of the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. I can't believe I've made it so far. I'm so thrilled that I've made it to 50 episodes. And this episode is going to be a little bit different to a normal one because I'm taking 50 of my favorite